All right, today on the side project, we're tackling storage. So, my solution, these yellow bins. Damn it. My solution are 27-gallon bins. Now, I know a lot of us have seen these. They're very popular. Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, Sam's, all those places you can find them. I think Amazon probably, I'm sure. So, we're gonna be building a storage rack to hold those bins. Now, again, just like those bins are popular, these storage racks are somewhat popular. I actually build these storage racks and sell them. So I am cheating a little bit because I've got some systems that make building these a lot simpler for me. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna show you how to build one of these. Pretty simple build, but an effective build. Okay, so for our build today, we're gonna be putting together a 12-bin storage rack. That's gonna be 4 high by 3 wide. All we're gonna need is 18 2x4s. And then this is gonna be our cut list. Again, pretty simple build. We're gonna need 4 cut down to 68¼ inch. Those are gonna be for our horizontal pieces. Just 4 of those, 2 on bottom, 2 on the top. And then we're gonna need 8 cut at 64 inches. Okay, those are our vertical pieces. Those are gonna be what builds up the columns for us vertically. And then we will need 24 cut at 29 inches. And those are gonna be basically what the bins sit on. I call those the runners. Okay, and again, those are gonna be drilled into the vertical pieces, and that's what the bins are gonna slide in on and rest on. Now, in order to only need 18 2x4s, you do have to be slightly strategic with the way we cut this. The way I like to do it, we've got, and also one thing I didn't mention, I'm about to talk about it right now, you will need 4 pieces cut at 24 inches, and then we'll cut those diagonally at 45-degree angles on both ends of those 24-inch pieces. And I get those pieces on this one specifically from this horizontal piece. Okay, so cut it down to 68.25, and then with what's left over, I cut down the rest of it to 24 inches. Okay, so really between this one, our horizontal pieces, and our diagonal pieces, call these the diagonal pieces, those are gonna be our supports that keep it from shifting side to side. All you need is 4 2x4s. Okay, so that's where you get there. And then for each one of our vertical pieces, so we've got 8 vertical pieces. Each one of those, we're gonna get a 64-inch piece, and then with our leftover, we're gonna get 1 29-inch piece. Okay, so what that leaves us with is 16 runners with what's left. Okay, and each 2x4, you can get 3 runners out. As you'll see, I'll mark it off for you here in a minute, and then I'll show you how I cut everything. But that ends up working out to where we only need 18 2x4s for this entire build. So again, cost is about 60 to 70 bucks for this entire rack. I like to start with the horizontal and diagonal pieces. Okay, so we are gonna get 1 horizontal and 1 diagonal piece out of each one. So we're gonna start with the horizontal. We got a 68¼ and then we'll flip it around. Okay, we'll mark our 24-inch piece. Okay. And then we'll repeat that with the rest of this. Next up is going to be our vertical pieces. And with our vertical pieces, we'll get 1 vertical and then 1 runner at 29. So this will be 64 inches going this way. And 29 going this way. Our last cuts here are going to be the rest of our runners. So again, we just got 8 of them. We need 24 total, so we got 16 more. So we got 6 2x4s. We'll get 3 out of each, so really we'll get 18, so we'll have 2 extras, which is fine. So this is one of the little tricks that I use. Doesn't really save me that much time, I'm not sure. Here it is 29 inches, so all I gotta do is lay it over and mark it like that. So I don't know if it really saves me that much time, but I use it. Otherwise I would just mark it off on the tape measure. So no big deal if you don't have this. So what I like to do is mark 29 on both ends. So I've got a measurement on both ends. And then when I cut it, I'll cut it off both ends, and then I'll just use one of the ends as my template for that third cut. Next step in the build is going to be to assemble the vertical pieces. I like to call them the ladders because that's what they end up looking like. So this is the biggest difference that it's going to be for somebody that doesn't have this setup that I have. Like I said, this is one of the things that I built to make the process a lot easier for me. So this is basically a jig, and that gives me the proper spacing for each one of my runners. So, and clamp down this side, so I make sure it's butted up against the bottom and all the way up against the side here of each of these 2x4s, and then I go ahead and clamp this side down, and then I work from this side. I do the same thing on the bottom. I clamp it down here. I could clamp it down here. I just only have 3 clamps, and it works because I can be on this side and apply pressure where I need to. So this part's pretty straightforward. I like to start on the bottom, put a couple screws in, then get to the top, make sure everything's squared up, and then work my way back down. Okay, so now we're on the back side of this ladder. You can see we went ahead and flipped it over. I do this side a little bit different just to speed the process up. I use my speed square and just make sure everything's flushed up on both sides and flushed up with the ladder on the other, or the runner on the other side. And once I do that, I run those screws in, and that makes everything nice and symmetrical. So with this 12-bin rack, you do end up having to make 2 like this, where you have runners on the front and the back. Those are the 2 interior vertical pieces, the 2 interior ladders. And then you have 2 that only have runners on one side, and those are your 2 side ladders or vertical pieces. So you can see I go through and take care of the rest of this. One thing I will mention, if you don't have this jig that I have, there's definitely other options. I didn't always have this jig. I started on just a flat work surface, and what I did, it was a very similar process. I clamped down one of the 2x4s, one of the vertical pieces. I clamped it down to one edge of my workbench, and then I did also clamp down a scrap piece of 2x4 down at the bottom of the workbench so that I could butt it up against it, and that would kind of be the base. And then I would do the same thing on the other side. And then what you have to do to get the proper spacing is actually cut out spacers. So that's how I started, and it worked great for a long time. And so when you do that, your bottom spacer, so the space between what ends up being the bottom of your storage rack and that first runner, is going to be 10.5 inches. Okay, so if you're going to do this on your own, you want to get 2 10.5 inch spacers. And then the rest of the way up is 12¼ of an inch, so 12.25 inches for the rest of the spacers. Whether you end up going like we did 4 high here, if you go 5 high, or you only go 3 high, whatever you end up doing, your first spacer is 10.5, and then after that, it's 12¼ of an inch. All right, last step is to assemble the rack. So I'm going to start with my 2 outside vertical pieces. I'm going to stand them up. I like to have the front of the rack facing up. And then you can see I grab my horizontal pieces and I start assembling those. I start in one corner, make sure everything stays level. I got a little level that you can see in that video right there that I use to just make sure everything stays level with the ground as I'm putting these screws in. So I start on top and bottom, and then once I get these in, I'll work up to the top. On these top ones, I like to get the 4 screws in. Makes it way easier. I just use a little leverage with my leg there to keep it held up against the rack, and then do the same thing on the top. Okay, so now we're moving to the interior ladders or vertical pieces on the storage rack. You can see I do have 4 spacers there. Those spacers are going to be important. They're going to make making sure this thing is stays symmetrical and all the bins fit. Super important. So you will need those. Those spacers are 20¾ of an inch. So 20¾ 20.75 inches. And that's what I figured works best for all these different sizes of bins. But you can see I use one on top, bottom, on both sides. And I like to use the clamps, clamp them in, makes everything go real quick.
It's not. The Home Depot ones tend to be a little skinnier, so they fit a little looser, but still fit fine. These things are really cool because, of course, you could go.
And that's going to be pretty much your full build. The last step here is going to be to install the diagonal pieces. You saw me briefly cut them.
Like, subscribe.
I like to put one in each corner.
It
makes the stability much better. If you're not going to fix it to the wall, which is definitely an option, if you're not going to do that, I would suggest adding something, either some kind of backing to make that side-to-side stability better.
Are somebody that is wanting to do this kind of as a side hustle and might start making more of these. If you have any questions about my workbench over there that I use as a jig to make these verticals a lot quicker, be sure and leave a comment. And if there's enough folks that are interested, we'll make a video kind of overviewing what I did to get that thing set up. So thanks for tuning into the side project. Look forward to the next one.